Ladies and gentlemen, good morning on this beautiful Canberra day. The Remembrance Day national ceremony will commence shortly, so we ask that you could kindly take your seats, please. Now, should you need assistance to locate a member of your party, please make your way to the information tent. Now, that's on the left as you face the memorial. And should you require first aid or toilet facilities, assistance can be sought from staff members. And to maintain the dignity of the occasion, could you please turn off your mobile phone or switch it to silent? Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Scott Bevan, and on behalf of the Chairman of the Council of the Australian War Memorial, Mr. Kerry Stokes, the Director, the Honourable Dr. Brendan Nelson, Council members and staff, welcome to you all, and thank you for joining us here this morning. We would like to acknowledge the dignitaries who are joining us on the dais and the representatives of the Diplomatic Corps. We welcome the school students in attendance and the veterans who have served, those who are still serving, and the families who support them. 100 years ago, the third year of the Great War, 1917, would prove to be the worst Australia had experienced. More troops died in battle in that year than in any other. Massive offensives were fought for moderate gains. In the mud and the horror of the Third Battle of Ypres, known simply as Passchendaele, Australian forces incurred more than 38,000 casualties in just 8 weeks of fighting. It was one of the most costly campaigns of the First World War. Now, since that awful year, through the inconsolable grief and mourning of a generation of Australians, we have been inextricably linked with the nation of Belgium. As the Australians and other Allied soldiers marched into battle, they passed two iconic stone statues, the Men and Gate lions, which stood sentinel as Ypres was ruined by the artillery that fired all around them. The lions were the final reminder of civilised existence, and the last thing all too many saw as they faced death, before they faced adversity and circumstances beyond our comprehension. Broken and scarred, the lions were later recovered from the war rubble, and in 1936 they were presented to the Australian government as a token of friendship and an acknowledgement of Australia's sacrifice in the region during the war. Well, since 1991, the lions have been displayed here at the entrance to the Australian War Memorial as part of the centenary of the Great War and in recognition of the deep bonds forged between Australia and Belgium in bloody sacrifice. The lions were delivered by the memorial back to their original home at the Men and Gate in the city of Ypres in Belgium. The memorial has commissioned a feature-length documentary produced by the renowned broadcaster Max Utrecht, which illustrates the emotional impact on the people of both Belgium and Australia as the Lions arrive on home soil for the first time in more than 80 years. We'd like to invite all of you to view this 45-minute documentary in our theatre today, on the hour from 2 p.m, and tomorrow, again on the hour from 11 a.m, to share in this moving story of the Menengate Lions. Well, the national ceremony will now commence with the Tri-Service Guard of Honour, mounted by Australia's Federation Guard. They will be marching onto the parade ground, accompanied by the band of the Royal Military College, Duntroon. The Guard and Band are now in position, and we await the arrival of Senator the Honourable Matthias Cormann, representing the Prime Minister of Australia. Minister Cormann will be received by the Chairman of the Council of the Australian War Memorial, Mr Kerry Stokes, the Honourable Dr Brendan Nelson and Ms Gillian Adamson. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please stand. Senator the Honourable Matthias Cormann, representing the Prime Minister of Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, arriving in just a moment will be the Governor-General of the Commonwealth of Australia, His Excellency General the Honourable Sir Peter Cosgrove, and Her Excellency Lady Cosgrove. The Governor-General of the Commonwealth of Australia, His Excellency General the Honourable Sir Peter Cosgrove, and Her Excellency Lady Cosgrove. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing while the catafalque party mount at the Stone of Remembrance. The tri-service catafalque party is provided by Australia's Federation Guard.
Catafalque party! Catafalque party! Halt! Catafalque party, present! Catafalque party, reverse! Catafalque party, slow! Catafalque party, rest on!
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. At 11 a.m. on the 11th of November 1918, the guns on the Western Front fell silent after 4 long years of war. The 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month attained a special significance in the post-war years. That moment when hostilities ceased on the Western Front became universally associated with the remembrance of those who died during the war. This first modern world conflict had brought about the mobilisation of more than 70 million people, and it left between 9 million and 13 million people dead, approximately 1/3 of those with no known graves. The Allied nations chose this day and time for the commemoration of their war dead. On the 75th anniversary of the armistice, the 11th of November 1993, the focus of national attention was on the ceremony here at the Australian War Memorial. On that day, the remains of an unknown Australian soldier exhumed from the Adelaide Cemetery at Villers-Bretonneux in the heart of the former First World War battlefields in France was entombed with full military honours in the Hall of Memory. Remembrance Day ceremonies were conducted simultaneously in towns, in villages and in cities right around the country, culminating at the moment of burial at 11 a.m. On Remembrance Day in 2013, to mark the 20th anniversary of the interment of the unknown Australian soldier, a bronze plaque inscribed with a poignant eulogy delivered by then Prime Minister, the Honourable Paul Keating, was unveiled at the entrance to the Hall of Memory. So too the key phrase from the eulogy was inscribed onto the front of the tomb. He is all of them, and he is one of us. The eulogy was read at the last post ceremony that evening, and in keeping with this tradition and important date in our history, it will be read again at the last post ceremony this evening by Warrant Officer Don Spinks, Regimental Sergeant Major of the Australian Army. As we mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, Australia's Federation Guard is represented here today. It is a tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. Now, its members have been carrying out ceremonial duties since March 2000. It provides a ceremonial presence during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries and for civil and military events, including right here at the Australian War Memorial. The Federation Guard has already mounted a catafalque party around the Stone of Remembrance, and historically a catafalque was a support for a coffin, but it has come to be represented to mean a remembrance stone or tomb. Now, a catafalque party was originally appointed to guard a coffin from theft or from desecration. Well, now it performs a ceremonial role, honouring the dead. On the first and third Wednesday of each month, the memorial's last post ceremony includes the presence of Australia's Federation Guard, who conduct drill and mount a catafalque party at the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier in the Hall of Memory. The Guard also participates each Anzac Day and, as we can see, Remembrance Day, and will be present at the last post ceremony this evening. Also present is the Royal Military College Duntroon Band, and since its formation as an official army unit in 1954, the band of the Royal Military College has been at home on the parade ground and in the concert hall, and the band provides musical support to defence establishments in the ACT, including the Corps of Staff Cadets at Duntroon. And the band performs music for all types of ceremonial, social and cultural activities, as well as being the official band for all regal, vice-regal, diplomatic and state functions that are held here in the national capital. From the parade ground in front of the stone of remembrance, playing the didgeridoo was Wing Commander Jonathan Lilly. Wing Commander Lilly is a member of the Worimi people of Williamtown, north of Newcastle in New South Wales. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand as Mr. John King, representing the National President of the Returned and Services League of Australia, recites the ode. And after the ode, the last post will be sounded, followed by a minute's silence, and then the rouse.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. This year, the commemorative address will be delivered by the Federal Minister for Finance, Senator the Honourable Matthias Cormann.
Today, we stop to mark 99 years since the end of the Great War. We pause for the 99th time to remember the over 60,000 Australians who never returned. Today, we remember the countless more Australians whose lives were changed forever by war. It is a day created from a conflict that the world hoped never to see again. The loss, the devastation, and the tragedy of the First World War remains with us 99 years after it came to an end. In 1917, the men whose names and legacy we remember today had endured the darkest of years. Generations of men were lost to Bullecourt, Messines, and Passchendaele. The distant memory of Gallipoli had been replaced with mud, blood, and with more sacrifice. Australia's sacrifice in 1917 was the greatest our country would ever pay in wartime. More than 76,000 Australians were killed, wounded, or missing on the Western Front in 1917. Over 40% of Australia's casualties in the First World War occurred that year. More than this, for the soldiers, this was now a war without respite or redemption. Looking forward from their struggle, only their bravery drove them on while not knowing their fate. It is only looking back from the peace they gave us we can see today how close they were to its end. In Belgium, around 13,000 Australians paid the ultimate price. It is a price that those who lived there and their descendants have not forgotten in the last 100 years. In the country of my birth, Australians marched to defend and to die for the land of my family. At the town of Ypres, Anzacs would pass through the town's gate to the fight on the front. And as they went through the gate, they would pass two lines, statues set to guard the town and its people. Walter Downing witnessed the efforts of these men. As a sergeant with the 57th Battalion, he had marched with the Australians who passed through the gates to Polygon Wood. At the coming of dawn, the sky behind flamed like the aurora borealis. In that instant came a roar, as of the dissolution of the universe. The guns, 6,000 guns, wheel by wheel, firing 30,000 shells a minute, flung a thunderous ribbon on the German lines, weaving to and fro like the shuttle on a loom, combing the country with intersecting that passed and repassed. The battles of 1917 saw some success, but were no less in sacrifice. At Polygon Wood, Australians would fight a brief and clear victory, yet they would lose over 5,500 men. The machine of war that had developed was unlike anything that men had seen. Bean remembered the Battle of Polygon Wood as being one of unrelenting artillery and destruction. Roaring, deafening, it rolled ahead of the troops like a Gippsland bushfire. Each man walking into this hell, had his own story that had brought him to this place. For one Anzac, it was a story that had brought him back home. Private Cyril Knockaert was born in Ostend, West Flanders. A labourer before the war, he had emigrated to Australia in 1911, hoping to establish a new life in a new country, half a world away. When war broke out, Cyril was still in the process of becoming an Australian. In August 1915, only several weeks after becoming an Australian citizen, he enlisted in Adelaide to fight for his new home. His service would take him back across the globe to the Western Front. Fighting with the 27th Battalion, he would see the death and loss firsthand at Pozières and Mouquet Farm in 1916. He would be wounded near Flers in one of the mud-soaked and bloody battles of the Somme. He would return to the front to see action at Bullecourt and Broodseinde, a battle that took place only a short drive from the town of his birth. With many other Australians, Cyril Knockaert marched through the Menin Gates and passed its lines to defend Ypres at the Battle of Menin Road. Born in Belgium, now an Australian, Cyril Knockaert fought for the country of his choice to defend the country of his birth. On 9 August 1918, Cyril Knockaert was wounded in the side during the Battle of Amiens. 2 days later, he died. He was 23. His remains are buried at Vinacourt British Cemetery in France. The people of Belgium never forgot the service and sacrifice of those who came to defend them. Cyril Knockaert was born one of their sons, but in that war, all those who fought to defend their freedoms became their own. In 1936, the town of Ypres gifted these lines to the men and women of a country that had come to defend them. Since its construction, they have stood here at the entrance to the Australian War Memorial. They now guard the memory of those who fell and of those who have fallen since. In this centenary of the First World War, the Australian War Memorial has returned these lines to the people of Ypres and Belgium. For a time, they have gone back to the gate that guarded their people alongside the Australian soldiers. In their time, the duty of the Anzacs was to fight and to die for the values and freedoms we enjoy today. They were volunteers who answered the call of their country, a country that will be forever grateful. In the years since, the men and women who put themselves forward to defend their country, and their loved ones, our loved ones, have known sacrifice just as great. Today, they still are volunteers who answer the call of their country to serve selflessly. In our time, our duty is to guard the legacy of the sacrifice and service of every man and woman who defends us, our freedom and our values. On their return to Australia and to their families, we must ensure that the values and principles they fought to defend are not eroded. As a nation, we must ensure that the foundations of our freedom, such as the rule of law and the presumption of innocence, are extended to them. The men and women of our Australian Defence Force, from those stationed all around Australia to the SAS and all of those brave men and women who serve in Special Operations Command abroad, deserve nothing less. Today, we remember the service and sacrifice of all men and women who have fought for us. Those who bear physical and psychological wounds as a result of their service to our nation, and the families who love and support them. It is only on the back of their legacy that we enjoy peace. Lest we forget.
Minister, thank you for your words and your insights. Ladies and gentlemen, wreaths will now be laid in the following order. Firstly, the Governor-General of the Commonwealth of Australia, His Excellency General the Honourable Sir Peter Cosgrove, and Her Excellency Lady Cosgrove. Representing the Prime Minister of Australia, Senator the Honourable Matthias Cormann. Representing the Chief Minister of the Australian Capital Territory, Mr. Gordon Ramsay. Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Honourable Tony Smith, and on behalf of the Senate, Senator the Honourable Ian MacDonald. Chief Justice of the High Court of Australia, the Honourable Chief Justice Susan Keithel. representing the Leader of the Federal Opposition, Senator Katie Gallagher. Chief of Defence Force, Air Chief Marshal Mark Binskin, the Chairman of the Council of the Australian War Memorial, Mr Kerry Stokes, and representing the National President of the Returned and Services League of Australia, Mr John King. Chief of Navy, Vice Admiral Tim Barrett, Chief of Army, Lieutenant General Angus Campbell, and Chief of Air Force, Air Marshal Leo Davies. National President of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Veterans and Services Association, Squadron Leader Gary Oakley. And accompanying the National President is today's didgeridoo player, Wing Commander Jonathan Lilly. National President of the Naval Association of Australia, Commander Terry Makings, and National Secretary of the Air Force Association, Mr Peter Colliver. National President of the War Widows Guild of Australia, Mrs Meg Green, and National President of the Australian Federation of Totally and Permanently Incapacitated Ex-Servicemen and Women, Ms Pat McCabe. Chairman of Legacy Australia, Legatee Anthony Ralph, and Junior Legatees, Mr Thomas Bryson and Mr Thomas Grice. Ladies and gentlemen, as the Guard come to attention, would you please stand for the hymn, O God, Our Help in Ages Past, led by musician Rachel Sheed and accompanied by the band of the Royal Military College Duntroon.
O God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast, and our eternal home, under the shadow of thy throne, thy saints have dwelt secure. Sufficient is thine arm alone, and our defense is sure. Before the hills in order stood, or earth received her frame. From everlasting thou art God, to endless is the same.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. The embassies and high commissions of more than 100 countries are located here in Canberra, and the diplomatic corps are an active and integral part of the fabric of the national capital. Members of the diplomatic corps will now lay wreaths in order of precedence on behalf of the citizens of their countries. This gesture symbolises a unified desire for peace and the respect shared by all nations for the memory of those who were lost during war and other operations. In the first group, Timor-Leste, Tonga, Tunisia, Estonia, Costa Rica, Portugal, Uruguay, Malta. The former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, Croatia, Romania, Italy, New Zealand, Slovak Republic, Kosovo, Czech Republic. In the next group, Bulgaria, Belarus, Norway, Iran, Kenya, Pakistan, Guatemala. Hungary, Japan, Fiji, Cambodia, Mongolia, Spain, United Kingdom. In the next group, Sri Lanka, United Arab Emirates, Canada, Serbia, Turkey, Slovenia, Ukraine, Kuwait. Botswana, Brazil, Greece, Argentina, Ethiopia, Republic of Korea, Qatar, Germany. Netherlands, Singapore, Myanmar, Russia, Switzerland, Denmark, Ireland, and Austria. In the next group, Jordan, Côte d'Ivoire, Morocco, India, Solomon Islands, Ecuador, South Africa, Afghanistan. Bosnia and Herzegovina, Cyprus, Indonesia, France, Georgia, Belgium, European Union, Lebanon. The United States of America, Azerbaijan, Ghana, Papua New Guinea, Saudi Arabia, Poland, El Salvador, Bangladesh. Chile, Mauritius, and Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the Australian War Memorial centenary initiatives is the Commemorative Cross Program. Now, this project draws on the commemorative experiences of students visiting the memorial by capturing, in their own words, individual reflections on those who have sacrificed their lives in war and in other operations. Now, these thoughts take the form of short messages on wooden crosses, which are then laid on war graves where Australian servicemen and servicewomen are buried overseas. More than 75,000 of these crosses have been placed on Australian graves in 39 countries with the assistance of the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Well, a selection of these messages of hope and of thanks will now be recited by Miss Elizabeth Spollard, the winner of the 2017 ACT Simpson Prize.
Thank you for your sacrifice for our country. You are now resting in the soil of a peaceful country that you saved, and I hope you rest well. Thank you so much, lest we forget. You were so brave and very thoughtful for fighting for your country. Thank you for making Australia the way it is, lest we forget. Thank you for our freedom and for our beautiful country that you served. We will never forget what you have done for us. I thank you so much for giving your own life to give me the freedom I have today, lest we forget. Thank you for fighting for our country and serving Australia with pride. Thank you for your gift of freedom. You fought for our freedom, so we thank you. I am truly thankful for what you have done for Australia, lest we forget. Thank you for serving our country. You're a hero, lest we forget. To be remembered forever for your loyalty to Australia. We thank you for your sacrifice. Although so many have died, you're alive as ever in your loved ones' hearts.
Elizabeth, thank you. Well, representing the youth of Australia, commemorative crosses will now be laid by students from the following schools. From South Australia, St Francis de Sales College, Tennyson Woods College, St Anthony's Catholic Primary School, Mary MacKillop Memorial School and Dominican Primary School. From Western Australia, Wesley College, and from the Australian Capital Territory, Marici College. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please stand and join in the singing of the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free. We've golden soil and wealth toil. Our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gift of beauty rich and rare. In history's page let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing as the catafalque party dismounts the stone of remembrance.
Catapult party out. Hey! Turn! Catapult party. Hey! Turn!
The Governor-General of the Commonwealth of Australia, His Excellency General the Honourable Sir Peter Cosgrove, will now move to the saluting dais, where he will receive a royal salute to mark his departure. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Well, this year, His Excellency, General the Honourable Sir Peter Cosgrove, Senator the Honourable Matthias Cormann, Senator Katie Gallagher, Air Chief Marshal Mark Binskin, Mr Kerry Stokes, the Honourable Dr Brendan Nelson and their partners will make their way into the Hall of Memory to lay floral tributes at the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. And ladies and gentlemen, please thank the members of Australia's Federation Guard and the band of the Royal Military College Duntroon as they march off the parade ground. And ladies and gentlemen, the memorial will open shortly. And And you're encouraged to visit the commemorative area to pay your own tribute and to take the time to visit the galleries. And if you would like to lay a poppy on the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier, poppies are available for donation at the entrance to the memorial. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you to each and every one of you for attending the Remembrance Day National Ceremony.